Hello and welcome back to a new video on my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my top 10 books of 2024. I know we are kind of a little bit into 2025 now. I really wanted to talk about my favourite reads of last year. I actually beat my reading goal last year, which is surprising for me. I ended up reading 36 books when I originally set my goal to 24, so I was very proud of myself last year. And I wanted to talk through my top 10 because I had quite a lot of really solid reads, and all of these were above 4 stars. Some of them 5 stars, some of them 4.5, 4.75. So we're just going to go through them and talk about them. I'm going to actually do this in order. Some of them might be tied, but most of them I'm going to do in order from number 10 to number 1 of my faves. So let's get started. The first 3 in this list I don't actually have in physical form because I think all 3 of them I took out. Yeah, all 3 of them I took out at the library, so I don't have them in physical, but I'm going to pop them up on the screen. My number 10 book of 2024 was The Gathering by CJ Tudor. This book was so True Detective coded with a twist. I went into this book not realising it's actually a thriller crime book about vampires, and there's vampires there, and it was so good. I was so hooked into the storyline because we're kind of going between 2 different timelines sometimes and unraveling secrets about characters and their past. Follows a small town in Alaska where a murder happened, I think over 20 years ago, and then 20 years later the exact same thing happens, and this new detective is in town and she is given the task of trying to figure out what happened. But the thing is that vampires also live in this town, and they were accused of it last time. They got pushed out of the town, a lot of them were murdered, and now they're back. So the humans think that the vampires have done this as revenge for what the humans did to the vampires last time. I don't really know who to trust. Do we like the vampires? Do we not? I didn't expect the ending, but I didn't really expect anything, to be honest, because I couldn't piece it together myself. And it made me really intrigued to read more from CJ Tudor, but I don't think all of her books have vampires in, so maybe I'll have to look into what her other books are about, because that one I did not expect to be about vampires, but I was pleasantly surprised. My next book of 2024 that is in 9th place is Funny Story by Emily Henry. 2024 was the year where I discovered Emily Henry and understood what the hell all the hype was about. So far I have read 4 Emily Henry books. I've read 4 Emily Henry books. One of them I was not a massive fan of, People We Meet on Vacation. The other 3 I really enjoyed, but this was probably my number 1 out of the 4 that I read, and I just loved it. I know it's her most recent one, but personally Daphne for me I could relate to so much. She was just such a inner dialogue, and everything about her was just so relatable, and I loved her. I loved that she worked at a library, and I loved the love interest. I thought that their relationship was really sweet, and it kind of just blossomed really nicely. Well, it just felt really natural and sweet, and Emily Henry is just so good at making a believable love story. This is something that could happen in real life, and yeah, Funny Story was fantastic. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. I will put it on the screen if I am wrong about that, but I gave it quite a high rating because I really loved it. I absolutely loved it. And yeah, I'm really excited for Great Big Beautiful Life, which is coming out this year. I have pre-ordered that because I'm really looking forward to it. Next one is a book I never intended on reading, just randomly picked it up at the library because I wanted to pick something up, and it literally was such an unexpected surprise, and that is The Storied Life of AJ Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. So I have read obviously Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, and I didn't really know she had other books until I looked into it afterwards, and I didn't even know what The Storied Life of AJ Fikry was going to be about. But it basically follows a man called AJ Fikry. He owns a bookstore, and a few years prior to where we are in the book now, his wife passed away, and since then he's kind of become a shell of himself. He's not a very nice person. He just doesn't really care about anything anymore, and that is until he meets a young child that is left on his doorstep who he ends up having to care for and look after, and it changes his whole world and the lives of the people around him. and it is such a heartfelt story. Like, I felt like this could be a film or a TV series, and I know they did turn it into a film, but it didn't do very well, but I think it would just adapt really well to screen. It was such a beautiful story about finding hope when you feel like it's lost, and it turned AJ Fikri's life around, and it just was such a powerful story. I ended up giving it 5 stars, which was really unexpected because I never even heard of this book before, but it was a really lovely find, and it's quite a short book as well, so I would really recommend it if you're ever looking for like a heartfelt, beautiful story. It was really, really lovely. Number 7 of the year. I have these all in physical copies now, so I'm gonna talk about them in physical copies. So number 7 of the year was actually, I think this was my first book of the year, and that is In Memoriam by Alice Wynne. This follows 2 young men who go to the same boarding school and end up signing up for World War I together. As you know, a lot of people know, the young men who were going into this war did not exactly know what they were getting themselves in for. It was kind of propaganded as something a bit more fun, like go and like save the country with your friends, when really it was absolutely horrific out there. And this book really captures how they react to the absolute catastrophe that is happening out in the war and their relationship throughout that time. This is a queer romance, so it is set along the war, a time where like that wasn't really that was kind of frowned upon, so it's really good exploration into these 2 characters, their relationship and the situation that they are in and how that affects it. Loved this. I feel like this could get turned into a film as well. It was so good, and it's just rarely read books set in the World War, set in World War I, but I really enjoyed this more than I thought I was going to, and I think the romance element really helped it and kept it interesting, because if it was just about the war, I'm not sure I would have liked it as much. But to be honest, that was a big element that I did enjoy, was like seeing their reactions to going to the war. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars or 5 stars. I'm not can't remember, maybe 4.75. Put it up on the screen. But yeah, really, really good. And this was actually a debut fiction, which is insane because it was incredible. Number 6 of the year is Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. This was one of my last reads of the year, and to be honest, I did not expect to love this as much as I did. I'm not a massive cozy witchy fantasy person, but I ended up really, really loving this. I did follow Lucy Jane Wood on YouTube before this book came out. Not for long though. I think I mainly followed her when she announced that she was writing a book, so I was intrigued from that aspect of it. This follows a young witch called Belladonna who at her 30th birthday has to go through a trial to see if she is still worthy of her magic, and it's very rare that people get it taken off of them, but obviously it happens to her. She is not worthy of her magic, it gets taken off her, and she's given the chance to get her magic back by completing these lessons and just kind of really owning that she is a witch and learning her craft to the level that she is supposed to, because her whole life she hasn't really done it to the level that they really want you to be a witch with. Like, she's just kind of used it in like minuscule tasks. It just follows her story of finding her magic and becoming who she really wants to be. She works at a bookstore, it's cozy, there is a little bit of romance in there and a really lovely friendship between her and her tutor, and obviously something goes wrong, that's where the drama is, and it was really, really good. I really thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of Lucy Jane Wood's writing. I know her next book is another witchy book, but it's not following these characters, it's following a new set of characters. I have already pre-ordered that, but I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. I'm also 4.75. I can't, guys, I can't remember any star rating. I'll just put it on the screen. I love this, and yeah, it got me in a right witchy mood. I just love witchy books now. Book number 5 of the year is one that I read on holiday, which is The Dalagot Dream Department Store by Mie Lee. This is a South Korean translated fiction, and it's basically like when we go to sleep at night, before we start our dream, we go to the dream department store and we buy what dream we want to see that night, and it is so good. It just kind of follows a character called Penny who starts her job at the dream department store. At the beginning of the book, it's always been her dream to kind of work in the dream factories and in the department store and like just anything to do with dreams. So she gets her first job on the front desk, and it's following her and her growth in the business and the customers that come in and out. And it's really sweet. I loved it. I read it in literally like a day. It's only a short book, but it was incredible. I'm currently reading the second one and I love it. And yeah, really good piece of translated fiction. Ended up giving this one 5 stars. Just incredible. Absolutely loved it. Book number 4 is actually, I could have put the whole series on here because I did read them like one after the other consecutively, but I've actually only put the second book in the top 10. But really, I would put in the whole series if I could. But because I can only pick one, I've chosen book number 2 of The Infernal Devices, which is The Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare. This series, I cannot believe it took me this long to read it. Basically, I only started reading it because the Chain of Gold Last Hours series is my favourite books ever. And I wanted to read about the predecessing book because that's like the whole point, is it's the kids of these people that is The Last Hours. So I really wanted to read this, kind of get up to date on like who am I reading about. So this follows Tessa, who comes from New York and kind of gets thrown into this world of absolute craziness and fantasy, and she gets taken in by the shadow hunters, and Will and Jem are there, and they all become very close, and it's a treble time, let me tell you. And this book is just, I loved it because it mainly follows Jem, who is my favourite character. If you've seen my reading vlog of this, you know I love Jem. Infernal Devices is an incredible series. I would really recommend you picking it up if you want to dip your toe into Cassandra Clare and like what her books are about. It's really good series. I'm giving this 5 stars. I gave the whole series altogether 5 stars, and yeah, if I could put the whole series in here I would, but I can only put one, so I'm choosing the second book because of my best friend Jem Carstairs. Book number 3 of the year is a really special one. I knew I was going to love this before I read it because it gave me very much Little Women, Haunting of Hill House, family vibes, sister vibes, and I was just so drawn to the idea of this book, and Coco Mellows pulled it off beautifully, and that is Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. Jesus Christ. It bought a paperback copy just to annotate it because the writing in this book is beautiful. Follows a group of 4 sisters where one of the sisters has sadly passed away, and the other 3 sisters have to come together to clear out the family's apartment that she lived in New York, and it's kind of their lives in the year after her death, and it's haunting but it's beautiful, and it deals with grief and loss and love so stunningly. It captures the feeling of being a sister so well and having that bond with other people. So the cover is gorgeous, and this was my first Coco Mellors book, but I'm definitely excited to read more from her. Really made me cry at the end. Like, it was just such a beautiful book. It got 5 stars from me. It was stunning, absolutely stunning. I actually forgot I even read this year. It feels like I read this years ago, but it is another one from Cassandra Clare, and it is the final book in the Last Hours series, which is Chain of Thorns. There is a lot of discourse online about whether this book was good or not. Yes, I agree. It was not the best out of the 3 books, but I still gave it 5 stars. I still loved it. It still rounded off my favourite series beautifully, and I still adored it. So this, I'm not going to tell you what it's about really because it would spoil the first 2 books, but I just feel like the characters, like literally you could write the worst book on the world, but if these characters were in that book, I'd rate it 5 stars. I don't care. They could be doing backflips. They could all die at the end. I don't care. I'm going to give it 5 stars because I love them so much. And Cassandra Clare did not that much in this book. Not much happened. But if I get to read about the characters, like, I'm still absolutely buzzing. And I just loved it. I gave it 5 stars, obviously. It is a chunky book. The pages in this were really thin as well. Finally, my number 1 book of the year. Oh my God, guys. How are we even here? To be honest, this could be tied with book number 2, but I just love this. I love this so much. I think about it to this day. I need the sequel now. I love Brief Sneeze, this book, and that is The Crimson Moth by Kristen Cicerelli. Guys, I never knew I could be that into a fantasy romance again. Like, it reignited my love for fantasy romance. Crimson Moth is about a world where witches used to rule it, but the humans got so sick of the witches and the way that they were treating them, so they wiped out all the witches, killed all the witches. They hate the witches. But there is a character called Rune, who is the Crimson Moth, who is a witch, and she's trying to save witches secretly. And there's a certain witch she needs to find, and the only way for her to find it is to get close to one of the guards, one of the most important guards in the city, who is Gideon. And obviously he doesn't know she's a witch, but he's after the Crimson Moth and he doesn't know that's her, but they're getting closer and they're getting in love. Ooh! I can't cope. I cannot cope. This book was so good. I need the second one now. I ended up giving this one 5 stars, obviously. I read it so quickly. To be honest, I think I gave it like 4.5, and then when I sit and think about a book for days after, like, that needs to go up to a 5. Like, if I cannot stop thinking about this book, it's going up to a 5 star. This is doing exactly what fantasy romances need to be doing these days. They need to be stepping up their game and being like the Crimson Moth, because this was so good. So that was my top 10 of 2024. It's insane that, like, it feels that long ago when I read all them books, but it really wasn't. And now we're into a new reading year, and hopefully I read some good books this year as well, because last year was a really good year for reading for me. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what some of your favourite books from last year were that you read, and yeah, I'll see you in my next one.